Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am Jared, and I am your host for GBS Beginner English. This is Speak Now 3, Lesson 14. She said she was sorry. Oh, how many times have you been walking down the street and been accused of being somebody that you are not? I had it happen to me for a long time. Actually, I have a doppelganger out there. A doppelganger. This is somebody who looks exactly the same as you, meaning that they have the same face, the same look. There are only so many types and ways that you can change up genetics. So somebody, probably going to be someone out there that you look like. My doppelganger, I'll show you a picture of him during class, is Paul White. You may say, Paul White. Who is Paul White? Well, you may know him better as the Giant or the Big Show. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. I look very much like the wrestler known as the Big Show. A few small differences between him and me. I'm the small show, he's the big show. He is about 30 centimeters taller than I am, but otherwise we're about the same, except now he has gotten himself to be very muscular and slim, which is my hopeful goal to also go. But the other difference is that he has brown eyes and my eyes are blue, which is what we're going to talk about here in our lesson today. So let's get started. Oh, don't wah. We're getting ready. We're going to have some fun. We need to be having some fun. So it's time for. Yes, let's have some fun. All right. Now, we're going to talk about our weekly puzzle. Then we'll get into the book. She said she was sorry. We'll talk everybody's favorite section. Now it's time for the workbook, and then we'll do the wrap-up review. So let's go ahead and move on for our work today. Today, we're going to start off with the puzzle. And yes, I'm going to be talking about eyes. The eyes have it. So in this picture, we have 26 different cartoon characters. Now, these are all characters that I have watched and seen in my time. You probably know most of them, but probably not all of them. Try your best without using the internet and see how many of the 26 you can identify. I'm pretty sure you should be able to identify 15 to 20 without too much effort. A few of them may be a little bit harder because, as I said, some of them come from my childhood and they may be a little bit difficult to pick up. And speaking of difficult, there's a couple that you have to be very specific because there are several characters that look the same, but they're just a little different. Let's see if you can find out who those 26 characters are. And then we'll talk about them next week in class. All right. So now, oh no! Oh, sometimes it's very embarrassing. We do things that we don't realize are actually embarrassing to us, but we have to find out the hard way. Now, we've got things that can happen to us, different situations, being very lucky. Now, I'm not somebody who's been gifted with a lot of luck. I've been gifted with other things. I've been gifted with a very good speaking voice and comfort in front of a group, but I was never gifted with lots of luck. My father has an extra sense of luck. My entire life, I can count on one hand the number of times I've won a contest or drawing where I have submitted my name. I can only count 3 times in my entire life that I have won anything, and it's usually, very small prize. But other people have extra luck. For example, my wife has got an extra dosage of luck, is that she signs up for online things. She wins online samples and things all the time. She's got the extra luck. I don't. And that's why I don't play games like the lottery or things like that, because I really don't have the extra luck. I feel lucky. I'm very gifted and I have some luck, but just not with gambling or getting things from contests. Just who I am. Um, how strange, how things can happen. Awful. Oh man, how awful. Or how embarrassing. There was this one time I went and my pants ripped and how embarrassing. Oh no. Yes. How scary, disgusting, how romantic. All of these can describe different things that we do at different points in our life. So try and find out what's the best reaction to go with these events. Then we're going to listen to a conversation where there's a mistaken identity. And I've been accused of being the Big Show, as I told you at the beginning of this thing. I've been accused of being the Big Show many times. I don't look like him as much as I did when I was younger, but as I was younger, definitely looked like the Big Show. So let's listen to this conversation and hear about their mistaken identity.
Lesson 14. She said she was sorry. Page 34. Conversation. A. Listen, what did Alex's friend want? Why was Alex embarrassed?
Something really embarrassing happened to me on Saturday. I was having dinner with a friend at Lulu's.
I know that place. My cousin said they had great food.
Yeah, they do. Anyway, I saw someone famous at the next table. Rihanna.
No way! She's one of my favorite singers. She has a fantastic voice.
My friend wanted an autograph, so I said I would ask her.
And did you?
Yes, but she told me she wasn't Rihanna.
How embarrassing.
Okay, so now it is embarrassing, but it's not uncommon to find people that are lookalikes. There have been people throughout history who have looked like other people. Goes back to Mark Twain's story of the Prince and the Pauper, where the prince of the land and a common beggar boy look exactly the same, and then they switch places. There's some great stories that have to do with that. So take a look at this, see what you got. Now, after you look at this for a little while, then come back to it and see if you can figure out what about these 4 lines. There are 4 lines we could try to add to this conversation. Adding these to the conversation might make the conversation a little bit better. So see what you can come up with and make it better. So let's see what we can do. Now, when we have comments and you have something that happens, you may have to say, oh, I'm sorry. They have good food there. This is the way you follow up to a sentence. Oh, wow. I've been in that place. They have really good food at that place. Oh, he arrived at 8:30. These are follow-up comments. This is where you can extend your conversation. So work on adding follow-ups. Now, when you report exactly what someone says, this is when you can use he said or she said. Now, if any of you are following, common things that are going on, when you say that he said or she said, this is what we call hearsay, is that this is what someone else said. Now, in a normal conversation, this is perfectly fine, but be careful. If you ever have to go to court, it won't work. Oh, but he told me this. That's hearsay. Unless it's been recorded, there's no chance for us to check it. So if you have something that you hear, be careful not to repeat it. This is one of the reasons why I took on a philosophy many years ago about passing on information, is that set up the story. I'll use a hypothetical. Hypothetical means this didn't really happen, but it's based on things that could have happened. One of my friends had a baby, and when that friend had a baby, I had not heard about the baby at all, but some of my other friends had and started asking me questions about it and telling me about what's going on. I said, I have not heard any information about this. I'd like to hear this from the person who had the baby because the baby had some medical problems. I did not mention anything about this to my friend. And after a little while, my friend said, you know, you're the first person not to ask me about my child and what's wrong with them. I said, I don't know anything about your child. He said, oh, give me a break. You've been listening to the people on the internet. You know what people are talking about my child. I'm like, I know what people have said about it, but since you have not said anything about it, I don't take it as truth until you tell me. He's like, really? I'm like, I, it's not my story to tell. And so I'm not going to ask you about it. He's like, oh, ooh, I heard this rumor that this is true. It keeps me out of the rumor mill. The same thing when people ask me about other things like, oh, what have you heard? Have you heard from this person? Or what do you know about their story about this? I'm like, if you want to know their story, you have to go ask them. Well, you could just tell me. I was like, yeah, I could, but it's not my story to tell. You need to ask that person about their story because that way you get the information directly from the source. Don't get it from behind the back. Otherwise, you might punch someone in the face and it not be correct. I'd rather hear it from the person before things. I have another friend who just left Korea a few months ago, actually now, and uh, I didn't know anything about him leaving. He and I have been coworkers and friends for a long time, and turns out that now he's gone. That makes me the old man on campus. I didn't know he was leaving. And it wasn't until I called him and asked him to do an extra job that I realized he was actually leaving because he told me. He said, you hadn't heard the rumors? I'm like, I heard the rumors, but I didn't know anything until you just now told me. And that's the thing. When it's not your story to tell, don't tell it. Okay. Now, listening. Now we're going to listen to Chelsea with some good news. Now, tell me if these things are true or good news or if they're bad and not good news. So let's take a listen and we'll talk on the other side.
Hello?
Chelsea, it's Ines. Guess what?
What?
I won a contest. I entered an online contest and I won. The prize is a trip to Paris.
No way! Are you serious?
I'm serious. I can't believe it.
How lucky!
The thing is, I don't remember entering an online contest.
That's strange. Are you sure the contest is real?
It is. They called me, and I already have the tickets.
How long is the trip for?
It will be for 1 week.
Well, congratulations, Inez. I'm really happy for you.
Listen, Chelsea, what are you doing in January? I want you to go with me.
Really?
Yes.
Inez, you're the best. Thanks.
Okay. Now, go back and listen to that conversation again. And after you listen to it, correct the sentences here that are wrong. And there are some that are definitely wrong. Now, a couple things. If you ever win a contest, one, verify the contest yourself. Saying, oh, yes, you've won this wonderful prize. Until you have confirmation from yourself, don't believe it. There have been too many times that people have been running scams. Don't fall for, oh, you've won this. All we need from you is your credit card number and we'll get you your prize. It's a scam. Don't believe it. You want to know some of these scams that are being done, go to the internet, type in glitter bomb scammers. You'll see some of the scammers that get caught doing some of these online scams. The other thing, these trip giveaways, there's always a chance that something bad could happen. Would definitely recommend, just like she says, Inez tells Chelsea about this thing and asks her to go with her. I don't want to scare anybody, but it's always better to travel with a friend. Um, Ladies especially. Doesn't happen as often as the movies want to say, but if it didn't happen, there would be nothing to write about. People do disappear on trips. So make sure if you are going to win, you're going to go on a trip, go someplace, take someone along with you, and definitely let people know where you're going so that if something does happen, we can check up on you at least. All right. Now, choose two of these sentences, complete them. I'm very good at something. Now, what is it that you're very good at? There are some things that I know that I'm very good at. I'm good at swimming. I'm good at teaching. I'm good at dancing. I'm also decent at art. But these are things when you know you're good at something. It's not saying, oh, I am the best. It's not making yourself feel like you're the best, or as they say, bragging or tooting your own horn. But if you know you're good at something, then it's like, okay, I'm good at this. Now, when I say I'm good at dancing and swimming, it's not that I'm the best. No, I'm not the best by any means, but I am comfortable, confident, and know how to do it. And I can do it well. These are some of the things that when you know you're good at it, be good at it. I'm not good at everything. I also know one other thing that I'm good at. I'm good at cooking. And if you've seen my shape in class, you definitely know that that's got to be true. I only wish that I could actually cook for you in class sometime, but because of COVID-19, that's just not an option right now. Come to my class maybe next year, maybe it'll become a possibility. But I love cooking, and it's always something that I enjoy doing. Talking to someone on the phone yesterday, or going to meet someone after school, or next year I will do this. What is it that you're going to do? Helpful hint, hint, hint. Maybe a final one-on-one question. Hint, hint, hint. Okay. Now it's everybody's favorite part of the class, the workbook. We're going to talk about, are these words positive, negative, or can they be both? Now, some of them can be both. For example, we might use the word special. Special could be positive or negative. Could be both. We just don't know. So we would put it in the middle. These other words, lucky, strange, awful, embarrassing, scary. Some go one side more than the others. And now, in each conversation, there's one mistake. Cross that mistake out and correct it. For example, how embarrassing. Yeah, but then she says she was sorry. Huh? Try to fix this. Find out which way you can do to make the sentence correct. Okay, best books. A Visit from the Goon Squad by Jennifer Egan. Now, this is a book review, and book reviews are great. If you do end up doing some book reviews, it's always good to give some positives. But if you don't like it, you can also put some negatives. For example, I read the book Game of Thrones, and I got sucked into watching the TV show, and I have to say, the first 5 seasons of Game of Thrones are amazing. The last ones, not so. But when I read the book, I had a problem with the book because growing up as a kid, I read fantasy books all the time. Game of Thrones seems to me like someone took all those fantasy books that I knew as a kid, threw them in a blender, went and just okay, this is what came out after putting all this into a blender. It just doesn't work for me. It's not that it's not a bad story; it's very well written, but there are too many of the things that I feel that I've seen this story before, and I was able to predict a lot of the changes and the things that were going to happen. The author did a pretty good job about keeping a few of the plot twists hidden, but not enough for me. I was able to see through a lot of them because, as I read a lot of books before. Um, I'll talk more about a movie review on the other side, but this is a book review. So listen, I'm going to tell you about The Goon Squad. Don't be put off by the unusual title, the strange structure, or the fact that this novel won a Pulitzer Prize. It's really not all that intimidating once you begin reading. Egan's novel moves around in time in surprising ways. The characters behave in a way that are occasionally embarrassing, confusing, and just plain awful. But in spite of that, I care deeply about them. Some readers may wish they had a list of characters and relationships at the beginning to guide them through. It can be a bit challenging to keep everyone straight. The theme of music runs through most of the sections, and the novel itself is structured like an old fashioned album. The first half is the A side, the second is the B. And like the B side of an album, the second half of the book is perhaps less immediately accessible. Readers have to work a little harder in places to follow the melody. In fact, the very last section is a PowerPoint presentation. How strange, but how interesting. I recommend this book to anyone who likes music and novels, especially together. This book review sounds an awful lot like a story that I read. This would be the Cloud Atlas. And the movie version is a very good representation of the movie. And if you ever get a chance, you should watch Cloud Atlas. There's a few scenes that are in Korean that will help you make you feel it's like, oh, there's some Korean in this movie. But I have to tell you, watching Cloud Atlas, my review of Cloud Atlas is like watching TV on a Friday night with a bored 3-year-old or 4-year-old child. They start watching a TV show. Okay, I'm bored. Flip the channel. I watch the next channel for a little bit. I'm bored. Flip. At first, it's very disconcerting because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But then once you get through and see how the parts are connected, it makes a whole lot more sense. Especially when you realize that the same actors are in every single TV show that you're watching. And you may say, oh, well, what do you need to do? Well, I'll tell you this. If you decide to watch Cloud Atlas, there are 7 stories that you have to pay attention to. And you may say, but teacher, there are only 6 stories on the TV. Let me say that again. There are 7 stories you have to pay attention to. And if you get a chance, highly recommend Cloud Atlas. It is very, very good. So read this again, mark if it's true or false for the Goon Squad. Now, what makes this movie or novel unusual? What are some things that you could do? Do you think you might want to read it? Why or why not? And then what is your favorite book? Now, I know some of you may say, oh, teacher, I don't like to read books anymore. I love reading books. My problem is that I just don't have time to read books. I've got too many things that I have to do. I'm looking forward to this summer. I'm actually going to be having a little bit of slow time. I've got 2 weeks where I'm going to be working in Seoul and won't be here at my home. So I'll have some time to actually read a couple of books. And one of my friends is an author and he wants me to read his books. And I said, let me get those books and I'll take them up there with me and read them. But one of my favorite stories, I like the Harry Potter novels. I don't like the Harry Potter movies, but I do like the Harry Potter novels. Dragonlance has always been one of my favorites. Douglas Adams and what's his name? Oh, Michael Moore. I enjoy all the books that they have written. But one of my favorite books, I got this book, and this was my first fantasy novel that I read as a kid. It's The Blade of the Poisoner. And it's a very strange book. It's very hard to find. I've got a copy of it myself, and I wish I had been able to get the author to sign my book, but by the time I actually found and tracked down the book, the author had already passed away, unfortunately. But it was one of my favorite books, and I actually have it's a two-part book. I have the sequel. It's not that good, but it's not a bad book, and I like the series. So then write a review of a book that you enjoy. I've given you a couple of books that I like. If you don't like books, you can always go for comic books or other stories that you enjoy. Try to avoid doing things like movies, but talk about something that you've read. Then we'll talk about some exchanges and talk about this in class. So, ladies and gentlemen, today we talked about your weekly puzzle. We had about the eyes and finding out what we can do there. We said mistaken identity and finding out people. And then we did the review, the workbook, and wrapped everything up. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you're having a good time and that you're ready for getting ready for your finals. Final exams will be coming up quickly, so don't forget to start studying. Until then, have yourself a great time, and I will be seeing you in class very soon. Bye-bye.